But we are on YouTube, so there's a microphone. Make sure that
Good evening, everybody. Let's get this show started. So welcome, first of all, to our annual general meeting on this lovely spring evening. I'm just glad that the weather is better today than it has been these last few days. So, we are streaming live to YouTube tonight, so hopefully there are people tuning in there. Good evening to you YouTube people. Sorry, my phone's also streaming the YouTube. It was very distracting. Welcome to our, I believe, 29th annual general meeting. Thank you all for taking the time to attend, either in person or virtually. My name is Pierre Duez. I'm the president of the board of directors of Kindercircle Daycare. Although I no longer have any children attending Kindercircle, both of my daughters, Claire and Ella, have had the great privilege of coming here. My younger one still comes by to visit from time to time because she's in school in the same building. I know that many of you have children who have graduated from Kindercircle, and you will agree with me, I hope, that it's all too easy to take for granted, until it's too late, just how special a place we have here. So we have at Kindercircle a team of caring, devoted professionals with a total of over 95 years experience combined at Kindercircle alone. They take care of our children, they help them through oh so many milestones, and they do such a good job of sharing those precious everyday moments with us. I could not have asked for a better first daycare experience for my children. And of course, this realization only really hit once my children left Kindercircle, but that's another matter altogether. As president of the board, it's my privilege to chair tonight's meeting. The AGM, Annual General Meeting, is an opportunity for the entire Kindercircle community to come together, receive updates on what the year has been like, and ask any questions that you might have. We will be hearing from the chairs of our 3 standing committees for specific updates in their respective domains. Our treasurer, Jason, will present the daycare's finances, and finally, our executive director, Kenna Paul, will discuss the year that was. Before we get to the business of Kindercircle, I would like to take a moment to recognize the excellent staff whom I mentioned earlier. There have been quite a few changes this year, as Angela has finally decided that she wants some time to herself, and she's retired after nearly 26 years at Kindercircle. She wasn't able to join us this evening, but I would like to thank those of you who are here. So, in the order that I've written down in my notes, I would like to invite Petrolyn up first. Petrolyn has been with us for 21 years now. I understand that my daughter gave you cut-eye the other day. I apologize for that. The flowers are actually labeled this year, it makes it harder. I decided to go for big, embarrassing floral arrangements. Isa has been here for 20 years. Leonie has been here for merely 16 years. Diwa has been here for 9 years. Chantal has been here for 8 years. Kate is no longer the new kid. She's been here for 2 years. And our newest member, Jaspreet, just joined last week, so new kid on the block. We are very happy to have you. The Board of Directors donates their time and their energy to navigating the waters, keeping Kindercircle running smoothly. This year, in addition to myself, the board consisted of Fanny Hotze, our Vice President, Jason Mayer, our Treasurer, Maureen Campbell, our Secretary, and all of our general members, Alex Rink, Danielle McGuire, Erica C., Leslie Mumford, Nadia Tennell, Sean Peacock, and Vicki Nolan. Thank you to each and every one of you for all the time and all the effort that you've put in. It would not be the same place without each and every one of you. Now, every board member, in addition to coming to the monthly meetings, which are so much fun, sits on one of our 3 standing subcommittees. And honestly, these subcommittees are where the real work happens. So I would like now to ask a representative from each committee in turn to come up and share a report on this year's activities. So first of all, I would like to invite Vicki Nolan up to speak as chair of the fundraising committee.
Okay, great. So the fundraising committee had a busy year, and So we had several initiatives, and in total for 2017, we were able to raise $4,097.90, which was over our target, so that was great. So we had 2 bake sales were held during the past year, which featured the traditional baked goods for purchases, but patrons also had the opportunity to test their luck with a raffle. And the bake sales raised a total of $1,451.10. We had our annual family barbecue in the summer, and it was a great opportunity for families to meet and to get together. And all of the food was donated through families. And the barbecue, we also had a silent auction, which helped with the funds, and the barbecue raised $2,104.25. We had a couple other initiatives that featured the Macmillan food orders and also the Mabel's Labels, which is an ongoing fundraiser that we have. And this past year, Leslie had initiated a fundraising initiative through a Tupperware. So through the Tupperware company, Kindercircle received 40% of the proceeds from the sale of Tupperware, and then shipping costs were generously donated by Leslie, and we were able to raise $176 from that initiative. And finally, donations are always welcome, and we had a donation of $150 from one of our families in 2017. So Kindercircle continues to have 2 additional ongoing initiatives, the QSP magazines and the Fun Script. And these offer magazine subscriptions, but also the purchase of gift cards. So should you need to buy one of these, it'd be great if you looked in the newsletter, and then you can purchase the cards, and then Kindercircle gets some of the proceeds back. So we want to thank everybody in the Kindercircle community for their generous support over the past year. The fundraising committee helps to raise these funds in order to support the needs of all children and families at the daycare, and we look forward to another successful fundraising year in 2018. And we'd like to have a special thank you to Kenna for all of her efforts in supporting the fundraising committee and always putting the needs of the children in the daycare first. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Vicki. Fundraising does help fund those extras that make Kindercircle so special. Things like the music lessons the kids go to are not part of our core budget, and that's why every year it's important for us to raise these extra funds. Next, I would like to call on Leslie Mumford to deliver her report for the Planning Committee.
So the Planning Committee this year consisted of myself, Jason Mayer, Danielle McGuire, Fanny Otze, and Kenna Paul. The Planning Committee's objective is to address the day-to-day operations and special needs that arise as a result of managing Kindercircle daycare. Maintaining full enrollment in the toddler room has continued to be an ongoing struggle for the daycare, so the majority of this year was spent looking at the potential option of expanding the daycare to include preschool age children. So as the Planning Committee, we did a full analysis to look at the suitability of the proposed Schedule 2 age grouping and the feasibility of implementing that at Kindercircle this year. We surveyed parents to determine if there was interest in having a preschool age group, and we looked at the equipment costs and staffing costs and all the other things that would be associated with that expansion. In the end, we put in a proposal to the government to adopt Schedule 2 and move towards expanding the daycare. However, they rolled it out in September and then decided to eliminate it in November, so we were no longer able to pursue that route. So for this year, the Planning Committee is looking at seeing what other options might be available to create some preschool spaces to have some continuity for families who would like it, and that's kind of where we're at. Thanks.
Thank you, Leslie. I'm taller. I know that the Planning Committee's game is a long one, and I'm excited for your vision of Kindercircle to come. I can't wait for there to be preschool spaces here. I mean, that's the one thing that I keep hearing. Okay, finally moving on, I would like to call on Erica C. to discuss the Policies and Procedures Committee's work.
So the Policies and Procedures Committee establishes, reviews, and amends any policies and/or procedures arising as a result of managing Kindercircle daycare. or as directed by the Ministry of Education, Early Learning Division, or the City of Toronto Children's Services. So the Policies and Procedures Committee had a successful 2017-2018 year. In September 2017, new regulations came into effect under the Child Care and Early Years Act. So to address these new regulations, the committee drafted the parent issues and concerns, the individualized medical plans, and the emergency management policies and procedures. Additionally, the committee continued the annual review of policies, which saw changes to the Drug and Medication Administration and the anaphylactic shock policies. So it has been a great experience in my first year on the board and chairing the Policies and Procedures Committee, and I look forward to continue working with such dedicated board members next year.
Thank you, Erica. So the policies that Erica talks about are helpful for several reasons. They make sure that the staff and the board know what to do when expected situations arise, and they also reassure the municipal and provincial regulatory agencies that we're as competent as we know that we are. So this year, the Kindercircle Board of Directors took a new approach to publishing the monthly newsletter. Instead of tasking one board member with having to rack their brains every month for new material, we've shared the load. All board members get a turn at publishing the newsletter that you receive in your inboxes every month. Many hands make light work, as they say. And speaking for only myself, I've enjoyed seeing everyone's voices that they put together their own personal issue of the newsletter. We'll be continuing this format in the coming year, and if there are any parents who are not part of the board, but who would like to help out a little bit and take a turn at publishing the newsletter, please do not hesitate to approach Kenna, myself, or any member of the board to volunteer for that. So this year marks my final year as president of the board. This is, I believe, the 4th AGM that I've chaired. It's a tradition of mine to thank Kenna near the end of my president's message every year. And every year it gets harder and harder and harder to do. I look back on what I've written in previous years, on how impressed and awed I was at everything that Kenna has done, and at how she has helped Kindercircle weather whatever storms we faced in the 12 given months. And I remember thinking each time, wow, that was quite a year. I sure hope nothing crazier happens. And yet, crazier does happen. Some years we're ready for it. We've suffered drops in enrollment in the fall, Rube Goldberg-esque consequence of the full-day kindergarten that the province instituted. But this year, experiencing that, it wasn't our first rodeo. We knew it was a possibility, and we had budgeted against it, and were able to tough things out until our numbers came back to where we needed them to be. Some changes take us by surprise. We've been very lucky historically with the extremely dedicated teachers who have stayed with us for many, many years. But we've also seen some turmoil there, with situations changing for newer staff. Medical issues, personnel issues, personal issues. So as president, I've had the great fortune of working alongside Kenna these past few years, of stepping in to help on those rare occasions where I had something to contribute, of being awed by Kenna's perseverance when I haven't had any role that I could play. The time, the devotion, the energy, and the love that Kenna puts into Kindercircle cannot be overstated. So I look back on what I've written in previous years, and I realize that it all bears repeating. Kenna, you truly give of yourself to keep everything running at Kindercircle. I want you to know that the late nights and the long weekends that you put in do not go unnoticed. If I could, I'd clone you just to give you a break. Everything that you do for the children, for the families, and for your staff is greatly appreciated, not just by me, but by the entire board of directors and by the families of Kindercircle. More flowers. So one final note of thank you. I would like to thank the families who've joined us tonight. Some of you have chosen to join our board, for which I'm very thankful. It means I can take a break and know that we're in good hands. Others are just here to see what we get up to as a board, and I'm happy to play host to you as well. I hope that all of you enjoy the rest of the evening. So, moving on with the business of this meeting, the next thing we need to do is to accept the minutes from the 2017 meeting. So I know many of you have those minutes in your handouts. I'm going to get a motion to accept. Nadia moves. Second, Leslie. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. At this point in time, I would like to invite Jason, our treasurer, up to deliver his report.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, so overall, Kindercircle had a fairly good financial year in 2017, albeit not quite as strong as 2016. Last year, the center operated at a slight deficit of $4,000. This compares with a $20,000 surplus back in 2016. The main drivers of the small deficit are due to a reduction in overall parent fees from some unexpected gaps in enrollment. This resulted in roughly $6,000 less revenue for the center. Staff-related costs increased about $20,000 year over year, but that number is skewed higher from a couple of things. There was a 4-month staffing shortage in 2016, as well as a summer student that was hired in 2017. So when you normalize for both of those two items, staff-related costs increased less than $5,000 or 1% year over year. Other operating costs were down $1,000 year over year, so excellent cost management efforts by Kenna and the team. And on the balance sheet side of the house, Kindercircle's assets remain stable at nearly $163,000, creating a stable buffer to maintain healthy ongoing operations. Kindercircle remains in a financially stable condition with healthy enrollment levels so far in 2018, knock on wood. The center has appropriate liquid assets in the form of cash and investments, as well as very few liabilities. On a personal note, this was my first year on the board of directors as treasurer, and I look forward to continuing to serve in 2018. And I also want to personally thank Kenna for the incredible support she provided to me personally, as well as just Kindercircle, the staff, the board, and most importantly, the kids and their families. So thank you so much. And I'd like to make a motion to accept the financial statements for 2017. They've been distributed as part of this meeting. I have a motion from the floor.
Okay, all in favor? Any opposed?
Okay. And one more motion to accept the auditor Feder, Garreau, and Stanowski as our auditors for the ensuing year.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Okay. And now, so we'll invite Kenna up for some remarks.
Good evening, everyone. It's good to see such a nice turnout in the audience. And for those who are live streaming with us, this is a whole new experience, so welcome. Perhaps there is no relationship that holds greater responsibility or reward than the relationships we develop with young children. As early childhood educators, we all know that the stronger our relationships are with children in our care, the greater the benefit. Kindercircle has been in business for 29 years. In December, we bid farewell to Angela as she started retired life. Angela was an employee at Kindercircle for 26 years. We've been very fortunate at Kindercircle to have maintained employee consistency for many years, with a few changes along the way. All of the employees at Kindercircle who you were able to meet tonight have made a professional investment to you and to your child. With a new mandated policy and procedure in place for staff training and development, the college's continuous professional learning program complements and formalizes the ongoing professional learning. It's part of the culture of the profession, and it's an integral component of both professionalism and leadership. The CPL communicates to employers, families, and the public that early childhood educators are members of a distinct profession that values ongoing professional learning. As of September 1st, 2017, members of the college were required to start the CPL portfolio after their annual renewal. On August 31st of 2015, the Child Care in Early Years Act 2014 was declared, and the first phase of regulations came into effect. The second phase continues to support the health, safety, and the well-being of the children. We continue to use our program statement as our groundwork, and we review it annually to ensure that it captures the needs and all of those with a vested interest at Kindercircle. The third phase of regulations came into effect on September the 1st of 2017. With the knowledge that the Ministry of Education Early Years Division would be implementing a new optional approach to age groupings, ratios, and staff qualifications, the Board of Directors took on a very proactive approach. A general parent survey was distributed in August of 2017, and one of those sections focused on extending the age group to children up to the age of 4. 67% of the respondents indicated that they would be interested in keeping their children at Kindercircle for the extended age. It was really unfortunate that after all of the hard work that Leslie spoke of in her presentation, that after submitting it, Schedule 2 was revoked by the province of Ontario. At Kindercircle, we have always supported our parents in their role and acknowledged the importance of working together as a team, allowing us to provide a high-quality program. Parents are encouraged to visit their children during the day, or at the very least, drop by and take a peek to see what your child is doing with their friends. Phase 3 addressed parent access to their children during the day, which allows for more transparency and communication with parents and families. Alongside this new provision came the need to create a new policy and procedure to address parent issues and concerns. In January of 2015, Premier Kathleen Wynne announced that the Ontario government had committed $269 million over 3 years to support wage enhancement in licensed childcare. 2017 marked the third year, whether or not you can believe it, Pierre, 3 years of that provincial wage enhancement grant. Employees with an hourly salary of less than $26.68 per hour were eligible to receive up to a maximum of $2 per hour. Over the years, we've been given more flexibility on how to administer the wages and benefits associated with the grant. And only Pierre and I know how important that flexibility is. In February, Kindercircle received its annual visit from one of Toronto's Children's Services quality assessors to evaluate our program using the assessment and quality tool. The assessment sets out to limit and look at our expectations as well as our service standards. The assessment is based on a 5-point scale, and the assessors drop by unannounced so that they can take a snapshot of what they call a typical day. In 2017, Kindercircle scored 4.5 in the infant room, 4.04 in the toddler room, and 4.0 for nutrition. The assessor was unable to complete our playground inspection in February due to the icy surfaces and returned in June. We scored 4.17 for both the infant and toddler playground. Details of all of the findings can be found at the City of Toronto website. And should they drop in on us again tomorrow, they're going to find more icy surfaces. At Kindercircle, we have a community of dedicated people whose common goal is to provide an environment that promotes healthy development for the children, the staff, as they learn, grow, and play. We at Kindercircle are extremely fortunate to have such a well-functioning board comprised of parents and individuals who share that common interest in our success. The Board of Directors' role is to ensure that the daycare is run efficiently, that the required policies and procedures are in place, that we operate within our budget that is approved at board level. The board hosts an evening out with the staff. They participate in our annual fundraising barbecue, and they support all of the Kindercircle events, and I hope all of you will have the opportunity to attend them this upcoming year. Jason took on the role and responsibility of treasurer during 2017. Jason, your organizational skills were really appreciated during the time that we spent together preparing the 2018 budget. I want to thank you for your support throughout the year and also for getting through your first budget presentation at the board solo due to my absence. So thank you so much for doing that. Maureen, who has completed her second term as secretary of the board, thank you so much, Maureen. You have kept us all grounded. Your efficiency, your sense of commitment during your time on the board has been appreciated by everyone. So thank you so very much. Pierre has been our has served on the board for 6 years and has completed his 4th term as president. He sat in the Policy and Procedures Committee this year, but every year that Pierre has served as president, he's also sat on a committee, so he's been really involved. You've filled in during my absences. You've submitted serious occurrences on my behalf to the Ministry of Education, and you've really supported the staff when necessary. You've always been accessible to us, no matter what might be happening in your life. And it's not uncommon to have you drop by to say hello and to check in, just to see how everyone is doing. You would then go into the toddler room and spend time sharing high fives, and just adding, of course, to the excitement that was already taking place in the playroom. Pierre, we want to thank you so much for your sense of humor, your commitment, your time, and your love of Kindercircle. And I heard in your report that you are leaving us. So please just remember that our door is always open to you. Kindercircle Daycare and Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital have continued to work together over the past year to promote a healthy work environment for their employees. Many of you know the tremendous benefit it is for having your child in the same building where you work. Kindercircle serves as a learning environment throughout the year for pediatric residents, speech-language pathologists, and nurse practitioner students who benefit from spending time at Kindercircle observing children's play in a natural environment and to give them a better understanding of the children's development and behaviors. We're very fortunate to have access to the facilities and some of the programs within the building, including our weekly musical experiences with Andrea and the music interns. In 2017, we provided care for 30 employees of Holland Bloorview, 8 employees from surrounding healthcare facilities, 11 families from the community, which included 9 subsidized families and 2 children with special needs. I am truly honored to be surrounded by such a group of dedicated individuals. I have learned so long ago that it's not the walls that surround us every day that makes us a quality childcare facility. It is the staff, the children, their families, and the board of directors. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of you for your contributions, and I look forward to a new board that will be joining Kindercircle and keeping in touch with those of you who have to say goodbye. Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, we do have some returning members for our board and a few new members. So I'd like to call on everyone for the new slate for Kindercircle Board of Directors. We have Lindsay Cabral, Karen Healy, Fanny Hutze, Jason Mayer, Danielle McGuire, Bridget Nelson, Kate Perry, Alexandra Rink, Erica C., Nadia Tennell, and Jenna Doig.
Okay. So, as part of the legislative framework in which we operate, I need to use the microphone so the YouTube people can hear me. Hello, YouTube people. Now that the slate has been presented, I am mandated to ask 3 times whether there are any nominations from the floor. Anybody who would like to join the board who is not on the slate is welcome to nominate themselves. I would advise against nominating somebody who's not expecting it. So I will ask 3 times and only 3 times. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? I feel like I'm talking to my daughters here. Are there any nominations from the floor? Okay, so can I have a motion to accept the slate as presented? Danielle, second. Vicky, all in favor? Any opposed? That makes it unanimous. Wonderful. Need my cheat here. Okay. So we get to the thanks portion of the program. We do have an exciting slate for next year. The board is going to maintain the same size, but with all those new board members, that means that there are several board members who are leaving the board. So I would like to thank each of you in turn and ask you to come up and receive a small token of thanks. So first, Maureen Campbell, our outgoing secretary. Thank you, Maureen. Vicki Nolan, who chaired the fundraising committee this year. And Leslie Mumford, who chaired our planning committee. I promise you all that chairing a committee is not what leads people to leave the board. It's actually a lot of fun to do. And Sean Peacock, who has chaired committees in the past and has stepped outside, I think, for the time being. So we'll give him his picture frame later.
And that's everybody
That's
who's
it.
leaving the board.
And I'm out of here as well. But I'm not going to give myself a present. So I believe that's everything. Uh-oh. I was going to say, are there any announcements? And then people get up. This is
This isn't an announcement yet.
this is part of the thanks.
Come on,
Okay.
everybody, let's go. We should speak into the...
That's right. That way the whole internet can hear you.
I don't want everybody to hear. Okay, Pierre. Pierre, the guy with a good sense of humor, a smile that is infectious. He has the character of a child when he is around children. He served on the board of directors for Kindercircle for 6 years and president for 4 years. He is a dad who is willing to go a mile and beyond the call of duty. He is like a ray of sunshine when he walks into the daycare, whether it is for business or pleasure. He is the dad of 2 gorgeous girls, Claire and Ella, who we had the pleasure of taking care of in the daycare. Pierre, it was a pleasure having you as president and parent and president of the board of directors.
My turn. I can pop that petulant, but I had the pleasure of playing with both your girls, my Claire Bear and Ella B, and they are just beautiful. So thank you. I love watching them grow and learn. And just when Kenna was away, how you always checked on me to make sure I was doing okay with the staff in the daycare meant a lot to know that someone had my back. So I thought of a quote that kind of just thought of you and your family. And it says, life has many ways of testing a person's will, either by having nothing happen at all or by having everything happen all at once. And I felt like we've done that. And so just thank you again for serving on our board, and I look forward to seeing you again.
I want to join what was just said, and I want to thank you for everything what you did, for all the hard work that you did for Kindercircle. Thank you for your support. Thank you for always coming in and check, especially when Ken is away. Thank you for asking how we're doing. How is everything? Do you need any help? Thank you for Ella. Really learned a lot from her. Not just her. We learned a lot from her. Thank you.
Here, based on observation, notice I use the word observation. That's our daily thing. Over the past years, I've noticed that Pierre always remained calm, stress-free during crises and unforeseen situations. Keep up the good work, Pierre, and thank you again for your continued contribution and dedication to childcare.
Dear Pierre, it was very nice to have you with Kindercircle as a president of board. It was pleasure to work with you. Even though we know that you are very busy, you have very busy life, still you took time to help us always. Thank you very much and good luck for your future.
And now we crown him, crown him, crown him.
Wear this crown as a symbol of our appreciation
President.
for the goodwill that you have shown to Kindercircle, not only to the staff, but to the parents and children as well. It is truly appreciated. Thank you.
And it can't go without me finishing this. So Pierre, I've had the opportunity to get to know you over the past few years. I first met you as a new parent bringing Claire into Kindercircle, and then we were able to convince you that you should really join our board of directors. And then within a couple of years, you were nominated as president. And I must say I'm grateful that you accepted that nomination. You advocated for Kindercircle, but you also served as an advocate for Ella, to have her enrolled at Kindercircle. And I remember those conversations. You proved to be an excellent teacher, teaching all of us not only how to care for Ella, but teaching us all kinds of medical things that we never thought were imaginable. It was a challenge that I am so grateful that we accepted. As you prepare to leave the board, there are a few things that we would like to present you with. So in this bag that we would like to present you, I know you like signing your name on all kinds of documents, checks, that sort of thing. But sometimes you have difficulty completing necessary forms. So if you look in that bag, there's something in there that will help you along the way. Nope, not yet.
Aha. Very nice.
And so that you never forget Kindercircle, we're giving you what you first pulled out,
Aha.
so that when you put them on, they are full of circles and you will always remember us.
And just for the record, this won't make it onto YouTube, but circles. I do like socks.
And finally, we're hoping that you'll have a few minutes of free time now that you're not going to be serving on the board with all of the commitments and having those behind you. So we would like you to take the final gift home with you and to share it with Martha and to thank her as well for all of the time that she's allowed you to give to Kindercircle. Thank you so very much, Pierre. And yes, you do have a phrase.
Thank you all so much for that. Thank you. So, I don't think speechless is usually a word that's applied to me. And there's so much that I want to say, and I want to thank you all for that. That was very touching. So my younger daughter, Ella, who was at Kindercircle from about a year old until longer than most children are, has very complex medical needs. She uses a wheelchair, and when I approached Kenna to enroll Ella in Kindercircle, she was keen on the idea of it, but very worried about what would be involved in taking care of a child who's fragile like that. And as Kenna said, there was a lot of back and forth, and I was not willing to take no for an answer. And nobody wasn't nervous about that. I had to teach the teachers at Kindercircle how to use a suction machine and suction catheters and put this tube up my daughter's nose to get the gunk out. And there was so much more when she was sleeping. They had to monitor her vital signs. Basically, everybody had to become a nurse practically overnight. I don't think in my wildest dreams I could have imagined how well it went. I was so loath to have Ella age out, and thankfully we were able to sort of hit the snooze button on that a couple of times, because nowhere in this city could I find a place nearly as good as Kindercircle for how good care they took of Ella. And not just medically. I shouldn't dwell on that because it wasn't just taking care of her as a child with medical needs, but it's taking care of this child who's curious, who's engaged, who's lively, but who is more reliant than most on the teachers and the people around her to engage with and interact with the world. And it would be very easy for Ella to be left behind because she needs that extra help and because she's such a quiet kid who, well, not anymore. She was such a quiet kid who wouldn't complain about being left behind. But there was not a time where I didn't come and visit Ella, and she was in the middle of things. The other children loved her, and I think they caught that from the staff, who have shown nothing but love for Ella. And this isn't to give Claire, short shrift. My older daughter had her own fantastic experience at Kindercircle, and I think one that's much more similar to what all of her children have experienced at Kindercircle. But with Ella, where they were really forced to go above and beyond, words can't say how fantastic an experience Kindercircle has been for her and for my family. So thank you all. Thank you very much. So this brings us to the end of the meeting part of our meeting. I just want to see if there are any announcements from the floor. Any more surprises? No? Any more hats? This is a surprisingly good fit, by the way. I'm a bit disturbed by that, but well done. So if there are no more announcements, I hereby move that the meeting be adjourned. If I can get someone to second. Erica, thank you. I'm not even going to have a vote on that. I think as soon as it gets seconded, the meeting's done. So it's about 6:45 now. We do have a second part to the evening. We have our guest speaker who's going to give a great talk, I'm sure. Before we do that, though, let's have some dinner. I noticed that the pizza has arrived. We're just going to take a couple of moments to set it up. And then there is dinner and some snacks and some drinks there. Please help yourselves. And then we'll start the second portion at 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.
We'll do in the exact same spot where all the other ones are. No, I actually have a folder in my office. At some Do you want to speak at the podium or do you want to speak That's because you have oh yes, not. Well, it's not. But if got their water bottles.
be asked to speak, and I also really enjoyed the meeting ahead of this, learning about the caregivers and what wonderful support they are, and just Kenna and the team, because I came in with a broken arm because I'm one of your grandmas, one of your extended families, and I came in with a broken arm last year, and she was like just looking after me. It was great. Anyway, thank you very much for staying tonight. I've given you all a handout, which is a quiz, and you can score your habits for your children. So it's a screening tool for children ages 18 to 35 months. So the younger ones aren't necessarily included in this, but you could certainly try to do that. So it gives you a score at the end of how you're doing. I have some scoring sheets for adults too. It'd be great if you had a chance to do it now, but everyone seems to have their hands full. But we could try. But inside that, there's some really specific nutrition information about toddlers and food guides and that kind of thing. Are there any specific questions that people have about feeding children or anything that's like burning? As we go along, feel free to interject at any time. So the first thing I wanted to do was give you that survey to do and see if you can get that done. And then I wanted to talk about important nutrients. So there's nutrients that are macronutrients and micronutrients. So the macronutrients are protein, fat, and carbohydrate, and there's a fourth one, that's alcohol. So we don't have to worry about with the toddlers. And there's a big question always, like, how much protein do we need? How much protein do our kids need? So what I like to do is go by a guide. If a child is getting 600, 700, 750 mils of milk a day, then if they're actually taking their milk, then the protein that they need is only the size of the palm of their hand twice a day. So if you take a look at a little palm, it's not even an ounce twice a day. So it's just a tiny, tiny bit of protein. Because even children up to 10 years of age, their major nutrition is from a milk or a milk alternative. So right up to 10 years or older. So they're getting like 600 calories of, say, 1,200 they need a day from milk. So it makes a real difference then what else do they get in their diet. Any questions so far? Yeah.
Yes, so I can just go over, so Olivia is now on 2% milk. So how much should she actually be having, and should it be spread throughout the day?
Yeah, it's great if it's spread throughout the day. And if she's eating other dairy products, then that's a little bit different. So if you have a child that's only drinking milk and won't take yogurt or cheese, then that makes a big difference. Then they really do need like 700 mils, which is about like 20 to 25 ounces of milk a day. And but some doctors are cautioning like not to have any more than like the 25 ounces or 750 mils a day, because it might actually displace some of the other nutrients you can get. So the reason that we do that specific amount of milk is that's exactly what they need to meet their calcium needs. And their protein, almost all of their protein needs are met with the milk. They hardly need any more, like half an egg twice a day or a couple of tablespoons of cottage cheese. Yeah.
Sorry, at what age do you think 25 ounces a day?
Well, it'll be right till they're 10 years old, right through teenagers. Well, teenage boys in particular, I suggest a liter of milk a day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because
both my kids always drink a lot of milk, but Mark Peterson says no more than like 18 ounces a day. Like she said something about
I know that's out there, isn't it? Yeah.
Drink, and
yeah.
We have to restrict it, or we try to give them less.
I wouldn't. I think one of the basic rules for nutrition are that as caregivers and parents that we lay out the food groups for them. That's our responsibility, and the child's responsibility is to consume those foods. So Anytime I do a 3-day food diary for clients, over a 3-day period, they always get the nutrition they need. So one day they won't, right? But maybe 2 days, it's kind of sketchy, but 3 days they will. And that's a really neat rule, because in adults, if you decide to cut down your food intake for 3 days, on the 4th day you'll start burning fat and you'll start losing weight. So kids are way smarter than us. So they know that if they, if we cut down their food intake, they're going to go crazy on the 3rd day. They're going to let you know. So I don't know if you've had that experience trying to cut down milk. So, but I would definitely set a liter aside. One of those plastic bags of 2% or Homo, whichever you're on, and set it aside. And when you go past that, you might, slow down a little bit or distribute it a little bit differently. Like sometimes people give like 6 ounces or. That would be 175 mils to 200 mils at each meal, or right after the meal, and then they'll drink it. So a lot of the, I think maybe in the handout that I've given you, it does actually show some food intakes with milk at the meals, but that's not very popular for some reason. I'm not seeing a lot of people giving kids milk at the end of the meal. It seems to be more in between meals, night and morning, the first feeding. So. Yeah, those are really good questions. So does that help you about the distribution? Definitely. Okay, good, yeah. Because I work with a lot of special needs kids in Kingston that are tube fed. And in those cases, we have to guess what they need. So we distribute their feeding through their tube throughout the day. And we have to kind of make it work for them, and sometimes we give them a night feeding at night. And so, it's really interesting to watch. Like sometimes a parent will come into the clinic and say, my child, I've been feeding what you say, but at 4:30 in the afternoon, they're just really grumpy. Like they can tell, even if the child can't speak, a special needs child, that parents can see the change in behavior. Do you ever notice that? With your
GJ fed, so it's continuous.
Continuous GJ. Oh, really? Okay. Continuous. So she's happy all the time. So yeah, you get these. They get like grumpy, or we have some that are on like 500 mils of feeding, or like overnight, and so in the morning they won't eat food. So there's a lot of work trying to transition them. Some kids from tube feeding to real food, and so that's when we have like big challenges with picky eating and stuff like that. So people did talk about picky eating. So one of the things that I talk about again is like a 3-day food diary, and when people do that, and then you sort of look at the food groups, and you may figure out that they've actually attained all the nutrition they were supposed to over 3 days. But if you wait till, if they don't, like on the 4th day, they'll start losing weight. So we don't really want that. So it's really important to sort of be aware of what's going on, but not panic about it. So, and you're understanding your responsibility to put, 3 foods in front of them, or you've got a little bit of meat, a tiny bit of ground meat. And then the next thing is carbohydrates. So there's different kinds of carbohydrates. So carbohydrates are fast-acting and slow-acting. So the fast-acting carbs are things like juice and milk is actually relatively fast-acting, so that babies have a bottle of milk and they get happy, right? Like they go, ah. And if a baby's nursing or on the bottle and they've been crying, you'll see them, they're going like, ah, wah, 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 and their little hands are as tight as can be. But by the time they're finished, their hands are open and relaxed. And we actually teach that to adults as well in terms of anxiety, that if people aren't eating enough regularly during the day and they're suffering from pain and other things, they actually get, when we get hypoglycemia or blood sugar drops, their body gets tighter, they get more pain, and they get more anxious. So it can go through the whole life cycle. So in terms of carbs, there's the long-acting carbs. So the short-acting is milk and fruit, and of course sugar and stuff like that, juice. And so the fast-acting carbs, we really recommend that people use a little bit of juice every day. So all the parents I see now, no, we don't give our child juice. No, we don't give them juice. No, we don't give them juice. Like, nobody's giving their child juice, which is kind of wonderful, but there are only so many sources of vitamin C in our diet. So the gastroenterologists that I work with, the only juice they recommend is orange juice, the pediatric gastroenterologists, and they recommend maybe, half a cup a day. But most kids, orange juice is too strong, so you really have to dilute it for them so they'll drink it. So orange juice is really important because it's full of vitamin C and folic acid and potassium. We've also been using it in some of my adult patients who want to have more children. So, I don't know. I read a study years ago about fertility and orange juice, and it was found out accidentally that people who drank orange juice, had better results. So I've actually used that with a few people. So I had like 2 vegetarians trying to have kids, and they had no juice at all in their diet, none at all. So I put them all on juice and oatmeal and high protein, and within 6 weeks they were having a baby. So it was pretty exciting. Evidence for that? I don't know. Anyway, so it's pretty important, and it's also the lowest juice, or the lowest fructose content of juice. So apple juice is really high in fructose, and of course, high fructose corn syrups are a bit of a problem, and a bunch of juices are a bit of a problem. So what I recommend to families is give everybody a glass of orange juice in the morning, and then they don't need juice the rest of the day. They can have water or their portion of milk through the day. Any questions about juices? Juices or fresh fruit is great too. So if you have time to eat them. So the only other good sources of vitamin C are green peppers and kale. So apples hardly have any. There's a teensy-weensy bit in berries, but there's pretty much none. So I've seen at Queen's University in Kingston, I've seen some students with bleeding gums because they don't, which is a form of scurvy from vitamin C deficiency. So they were raised, they were young kids, maybe 10 years old, when their parents were perhaps on the Atkins diet, and we first decided to take away juice. So they've they're very confused. The 20-somethings, you guys are lucky. Your generation is awesome. You're just jazzed up. The 20-somethings, they're amazing. So, but that's okay. So anyway, starches, so the starch carbs, those are the long-acting carbohydrates, yeah? Mm-hmm.
Sorry, to jump back, I'm monitoring the YouTube channel, and we have a question from somebody watching out there in the world. So they joined a bit late, and they're asking about the 20 to 25 ounce milk recommendations for toddlers. Is that for when they're fully weaned? And if so, what's the recommendation for breastfeeding toddlers?
Yes, we can't give recommendations for breastfeeding toddlers because we're not sure exactly what they're taking. But we're assuming that they're taking that much. Yeah. So, there's a lower limit of 500 mils a day. But any nutritional analysis I do for 2-year-olds in particular, 18 months to 2-year-old patients, they are not meeting their needs for calcium, magnesium, and zinc without that much milk. So all of our young people, we run the nutritional analysis, a 3-day nutritional analysis, and determine if they actually are getting enough. So it has to be 700 mils or just to get that. If they're eating yogurt, though, they might only need, if they're eating yogurt and a slice of cheese, they might only need 500 mils of milk a day. Thank you. Good question. That's exciting. Okay, so the long-acting carbs, so those are things like rice, pasta, potato, quinoa, sweet potatoes. There's a lot of popular carbohydrates out there right now, very high fiber carbohydrates. So when we're talking about those carbs, when someone ingests them, they actually last them maybe 2 to 4 hours for energy. So this is all why, in the daycare in particular, in Kindercircle, we have meals, to a certain number of hours apart, or snacks. So your child is going to run out of energy, carbohydrate energy in particular, every 2.5 to 3 hours. So a little top up or a snack really helps, and helps them with behavior as well, right? Again, if their blood sugar drops, there's going to be some unhappiness in the daycare. So that's really important. So the starch carbs, any questions about those? It's when we look at starch carbs, this is an old plate I had at home. This plate, when you're feeding your kids, you actually want the big part of that plate to be starch carbs, and a small amount of protein, and then not too much vegetables. So again, if you can only get so much food into a little tummy, you don't want it to be like this much broccoli, or so they only have so much room for that energy food. So they hardly need any protein at all outside of milk. So what is the other energy for your child? Protein, carbohydrate, fat, right? So we've all been raised with low fat, right? I've probably been the person who did that as well, raised my kids with low fat too. So when they're if they're not meeting their weight goals, then you definitely want to put a little margarine or butter or something that you choose on that baby's toast or potato or something like that. Any questions about that? So the starch carbs are huge for kids. Yes?
It's not specifically for the starches, but adding fat. So for dairy, you can buy different percentages of fat.
Yes, yeah.
So should you go the fullest fat for a toddler?
Well, they usually recommend whole milk until 2 years of age, and then you can go down in the percentage to 1% or 2%. I never recommend skim milk for anybody. There's a reason. Milk is supposed to have fat-soluble vitamins in it. So if there's no fat in the milk, where are the fat-soluble vitamins? They like to hang out with their friends. There's no fat in the milk, so it's not really fair to say it's getting it. So I have that concern about milk has been enriched with vitamin D for 60, 80 years. I could give you the exact date, but it's confusing when we find postmenopausal population of women with a lot of osteoporosis. It's a little bit confusing. Do we actually get that D over the years or not? I don't know, or maybe it's just our genetic disposition to get osteoporosis as we get older. So it's very, very difficult. Yes, get Luke.
Is exceeding or meeting or exceeding their weight goals?
Yes. Yeah. One, congratulations.
That content, should you be limiting it, or should you still keep up? Obviously, I understand with the milk, but I mean with the full fat cheeses and the full fat yogurts, I'm still giving her all of those. Or should you be starting to?
What age group?
Almost 2.
Almost 2. So, yes, I think I would watch the fat a little bit, but even all of us, we need about 3 teaspoons of healthy oil a day. So it could be a nut butter, maybe just a teaspoon of nut butter here and there, a teaspoon of some kind of oil on a potato or on vegetables, and maybe another teaspoon of oil somewhere else. How would we do that? So when kids are underweight, when I'm working with kids that are underweight, we're actually adding 18% cream to their 3% milk. Yeah, it's hard work because they actually, getting a lot of fat can induce satiety, meaning they might stop eating. So, and that was the whole thing with breast milk too, was that when babies nursed, towards the end of the nursing, they would get a little bit more fat at the end and then they would stop drinking. So it's a little tricky. But yeah, I mean, looking at, in those cases, we monitor that you have exactly the right amount of milk. Like if your child needs 700 mils of milk, or they only need 600 because they like, a carton of yogurt and an ounce of cheese, then we would lower that a little bit. And that, so we're very, very specific about that, and fairly specific about the fat being all healthy oil. And then we're hoping that the child will use like the carbs amount that they should, because that's really the major source of calories for them, and it's energy. And all they do is run around all day. I finally hit my 8,000 steps like standing here today, but I'm sure that these ones. Hello. Hello. Would you like to play with that? Okay, fine. Here, you can have this one too. So this is for the even younger baby, like the little tiny ones. So yes, questions about, so the carbs are super important, and there's other reasons that they're important. Again, for probably 80 years, we've been adding iron to flour in Canada, so white flour and brown flour. So the iron in the flour has prevented anemia, widespread anemia in Canada, as a public health issue. So if we use products that are organic, like grain products that are organic, there's no iron added. So the reason that they start with the baby cereal being a rice cereal, that cereal has a huge amount of iron in it for your baby, and it prevents anemia. So as soon as they're, around 5 to 6 months old, people will start a baby cereal, and it will contain lots of iron. And then in the early 1990s, they started adding something else to flour. Does anybody know what that is? They started adding folic acid to flour. So, and at that time, by adding folic acid to flour, we almost eradicated a condition called spina bifida throughout the world, almost, just by adding the folic acid to that. So folic acid is really hard to get, and it's found in orange juice and melons and strawberries and red things and green things, but it's really hard to get what we need. Yes? It's only in, yeah, you should check the labels anyway, because I think I have seen some enriched organic flours. But the term in organic means they don't add anything to it. It's okay. It's okay, I'm a grandma. I can. Hi. There's some flours that may have the iron added and folic acid added, some organic ones. But if you're shopping in a health food store, and you'll get spelt and all these great flours, and they're so interesting and fun to cook with. But again, for women in childbearing years and children and teenage girls, you have to really monitor. We get about 30% of our iron from grains that are enriched in this country. So yeah, it's a big issue. So the iron and the folic acid are amazing. So if a person eats, I got fired by a patient once for saying that a box of Kraft Dinner has all your day's requirement of iron and folic acid for pregnant women. But it's not the Kraft Dinner at all. It's nothing to do with that. But the patient didn't think I should say that word. But basically, the enriched pasta, so our enriched pasta with iron and folic acid, like if we eat 2 cups of that, which is a lot, it could be our entire day's requirement for iron and folic acid. So it's really helpful for people who are vegetarians and pregnant moms and teenage girls who don't eat anything else and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's the importance of the starch carbs. But when we look at rice and potato, those things aren't there. There's not as much iron and no folic acid in those things. So pasta is really kind of a great thing. If we have men that are mature men, don't need very much iron actually. So you might not be wanting to give them quite as much pasta as you do yourself and your children because it's yummy. So when you look at what they need, like they only need a tiny bit of meat, lots of milk, and then enough starch. And usually they're going to eat macaroni or whatever until they say no. So, and that's one of the really important guidelines for kids, and you'll read in some of the material that I've given to you that the child will say no or push it away, or they will let you know when they're finished eating. So it's pretty amazing. So essential oils, there's a lot of oils out there nowadays that people are talking about and switching around their oils. So we have canola oil, which is actually made in Canada, and it's actually very well balanced for omega-3 and omega-6. And then probably olive oil is really quite good as well. And then a lot of the other oils are getting, for example, coconut oil. Do you see the red part on this card? I'll let you take some of these home. The red part on this card here is saturated fat, and saturated fat is still felt to be one of the largest contributors to heart disease. And coconut oil is mostly saturated fat. So the only time I recommend coconut oil is for people who are vegetarians, because they're not getting any saturated fat, and maybe they would like some. So the canola oil is up here, and so the ones with the large gold bars, for example, okay, so the gold is omega-3. I'm looking for omega-6, the blue. The ones with too much blue are not necessarily good for you either, so that's why sunflower oil and corn oil and soybean oil aren't as popular as they used to be. I didn't bring all the other oil. That's another whole talk about oils, and people are using grapeseed oil and all kinds of oils. And they may be costly, but one of the things to think about is like their shelf life is very short. So women know this, but men don't, but if you open a bottle of oil and you pour some on a spoon and you smell it, women tend to know when it's rancid. Do you guys know what it's like? You'll know the difference because it won't smell fresh anymore. But guys don't know that. But usually you're not supposed to keep them very long. Any questions? How are we doing for time? Lots of time. Okay. Any questions about oils or fats, iron, organic? So as far as organic goes, we try to say to people to use, you can use organic milk, and a lot of people are really happy with that. And it still has to be enriched with vitamins though. So by law that you can't have raw milk basically in Canada. And so even the organic milk is enriched with vitamins, which should give you some insurance for your children. And then we love organic fruit and vegetables. That's great. We think that's great. The organic meats are hard to buy for sure and costly, but there is some merit in it for people. So I don't have but with the grains, I like to see families using the enriched grains and enriched flours and enriched pastas, just because it gives you that little bit of extra. I'm not sure why our soils in Canada don't really have the kind of iron. Do you know about iodine? Does everybody know about iodine? Yeah. So we only have iodine in salt. We have iodized salt, which means they added iodine to it. So in the 1940s or so, people had a condition called goiter. And goiter was seen mostly in central Canada. So the epidemiologists at the time realized that there was something missing in the diet, and that's why they discovered about the iodine, because the East and West Coast people didn't have as much goiter, and so they, when the prevailing winds blow over the land from the ocean, they carry iodine when it falls into the soil. So there was iodine in PEI potatoes and things like that, and it was naturally in their diet. But in central Canada, we didn't have the same kind of benefit. So that's why some of the foods have been enriched. Are there any other questions about enrichment? Or yeah?
Well, I have one about back to the dairy. What
Yes.
about pasture dairy products? Is there a
Pasteurized?
benefit- Or no, like raised on pasture.
Yeah.
You know, is there a nutritional benefit to that? You hear sometimes that there is. It has more omega.
Oh, it's sort of like free-range chickens, or yeah. I haven't heard a lot about that, but there's something huge coming with cow's milk pretty soon too, which is going to be really interesting. It would make sense. I grew up on a dairy farm, and when the cows went out to the grass in the summer, the milk tastes different. It actually tasted awful. I thought it tasted much better in the winter, but you would know, I don't know, we would just notice a change. So it had more of a grassier taste to it. That's really an unusual kind of thing. There's another thing going on. It's hugely genetic, and in the US, they're starting to pick up on it. We don't want American milk in Canada, so there's some people really fighting in NAFTA right now to make sure they don't come here, because they have a lot, they give their cattle more medications and things like that, so we don't really want American milk here. So we've had a big time with that. So I'm trying to think. I'm trying to explain this to you, but we can't talk about, you know how people talk about GMO, but in fact there's been so much genetic work going on over the years that we don't actually realize what's happening. So for example, cattle have actually been chosen, like sires for cows have been chosen over the years for black and white Holstein cows, and they can actually genetically use the cattle, the bull for the cow. It's kind of complicated, but in so doing, there's a protein in the milk, and there's a difference. So they're going to start reading about A1 and A2 milk. So one or the other forms of milk may be causing more allergies, and so like the Jersey cow form is supposed to be better than the black and white cow form, but it hasn't really sort of seeped up into Canada yet. It's just, so we're going to start hearing about that, and I've only seen it a couple of places.
Is that allergy to milk products?
It could be allergy to milk protein, but the Monash University FODMAP app has it included in there. And I have to check whether because that would be milk sugar. So there's some kind of a different genetic, based on the cows to start with. Yeah, whether they're fed grass or not. So mostly the milk is going to be very much the same. So different dairies, like certain cows have more butterfat production, and there are people trying to produce match their cows so they can actually have more protein in the milk. But the price of milk is always based on butter fat. It's not based on protein. So it's always how milk is sold. So it's very interesting. Any questions about the other milks, like soy milk, almond milk? Anything? Yeah?
So when it comes to animal milks,
Yeah.
is cow the most recommended one? Because there's goat milk and
Yeah.
other animals. For toddlers, would cow's milk still be the best?
Well, I think that people make choices. So I think that, especially if it's enriched, so if it's from a goat milk dairy and it's, processed effectively and pasteurized, and there shouldn't be anything wrong with that. Yeah, because it's still the same kind of casein, though. It's still this, there's still the similar ingredients in those milk. They're just a little bit different in composition. So any milk has to be pasteurized or boiled to get rid of any bacteria, and then when that happened, it destroys some nutrients when it is boiled. So vitamin C is one of them. There's only a tiny bit of vitamin C in raw milk, and it's destroyed by the pasteurization process, but it's certainly saved a lot of lives by pasteurizing it. So any questions about other milks? So almond milk or anybody?
Yeah, I use almond milk a lot at home, but I combine both cow's milk and almond milk.
Oh, together.
But it's,
Mm-hmm.
I don't mix them, but sometimes I give my son almond and sometimes cow's milk.
Okay.
He loves both.
Okay.
My question is about almond milk. You say there are different, some of them have 30 calories, 60. So I suppose it has more sugar. Or is it a different ingredient? Is it because of the sugar, the amount of calories? Because there is almond milk with 30%, like 30 calories, 60 calories, and 90.
Right. There's some almond milks with no sugar, but they also, almond milk, a cup of cow milk has 6 or 7 grams of protein, and a cup of almond milk has 1. So your baby may make sure which milk they get. They're smarter than us, remember that. So, like, they may, but we did, in Kingston, we had a child, an 18-month-old, come in on almond milk with kwashiorkor, like protein malnutrition. So they would try and drink and drink and drink and drink and drink to the milk, but there's no protein in it, so they keep trying to get the protein. So there are kids with allergies that we have to give almond milk to. It's the only choice. And in those cases, those kids eat a ton of meat. They're smarter than we are. So they'll actually, so if they're not getting their protein from the milk, they'll eat like a great big, whole hand of meat instead of a little tiny piece of meat. Does that make, do your kids eat a lot of meat?
He's starting to like it because he didn't like it before.
Yeah.
And I noticed that because my husband eats a lot of meat.
Yeah.
I don't. And I noticed that he likes beef.
He does.
But I don't want him to eat much beef.
Yeah.
That's my husband would like that, but I don't.
You don't feel that he should.
I don't feel that he needs beef.
Yeah.
It's up to him, whatever he chooses when he grows up. But I noticed that he asks for just small bites.
Yeah.
But he likes beef.
Yeah.
But not chicken or.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's big.
He likes beef.
I
That's
noticed
nice.
that at daycare, and I was talking about that with Kena, that he eats certain things here at daycare that he wouldn't eat at home. And I look at the chart.
Yeah.
I go home. I look at the chart every single
And there
day
it is.
because I want to make sure. Oh, he likes this, so I go home and I prepare exactly even better because it's homemade.
Yes.
And he refuses that. So I just came to the conclusion.
Bye-bye.
That it's because it's like a group activity.
Yeah,
with other kids, and now I'm not that stressed about that because before I was worried. I don't know. I didn't understand.
Yeah.
But it's because they're sharing with other kids.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make it like a family
Yeah.
activity. But sometimes we end up having like a meal for us and a separate meal for him.
I know.
Because
Yeah.
we want him to eat.
How old is he now?
He will be 2 in June.
Oh, okay. Because, you would want him to eat more with...
In variety, no.
Well, and more with you, too, like with the family. So I think some of the information is to try and sit down as a family as often as you can to, have them eat. I don't have a problem with eating meat. So if he has if he has, half of his milk as almond milk every day and half as cow milk, he's getting half the protein you should get.
He has more cow's milk than almond milk.
Oh, good,
but
good,
he
good.
likes both.
But that might be why he wants more meat.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I understand it.
they'll choose, and that's what we find with kids that can't drink milk, and we have to give them a little almond milk because there's a little calcium in them, and we give them calcium enriched orange juice too, and try to have them, we have to look for some really hard to find enough calcium for them. So so they choose to start eating more meat. It's just with families with celiac disease too, when they don't like the gluten-free products very much, the gluten-free breads and cereals very much. So they usually end up drinking more milk, eating more meat, and more fruit and vegetables because they just they're not fond of the grains. It's kind of interesting. But, you've got to try and trust them to know that they'll, if you put the foods in front of them, they'll choose what they need. Any questions about fiber or anything? Oh, is there?
Jumping back a bit.
Yeah, is there some?
YouTube comments and questions. Going back to oils. So you talked about the different properties of the different ones. You said canola is Canadian.
Right.
Is there a single oil that you would recommend most for use? Is there a best oil? Or
I don't know.
What's the guideline on that?
What do you say, Louis? We have discussions about this all the time. I really like, it's sad to say I really like canola oil because it's got a really good omega-3 to 6 ratio. It's good for cooking. So if you put in a little in your frying pan with chicken, it's not going to overpower the flavor. But then, and it's highly recommended for lowering cholesterol. I like olive oil, and it's somewhat more recommended for lowering blood pressure, and it's like awesome in salads and stuff. So it actually gives some flavor to the food. So it's nice to have a little mix. And then a lot of other oils people are using in all kinds of places, and we've got name an oil. Pardon?
Corn oil?
Corn oil? Oh, corn oil is very out now, but people, corn oil was probably when you guys were young. I think corn oil was in the 80s, and then I think olive oil in the 90s, and canola oil has kind of been in the the early 2000s, and now we've had coconut oil kind of pushing in there. But yeah, we talked about that a little bit before. But yeah, so fiber. What about fiber for your kids? Do you want your kids to have a lot of fiber? Yes, you do? Are there any constipation issues or? Yes. Oh, okay. So it's good if you talk to your pediatrician about that, or see and get a referral to a pediatric gastroenterologist if that continues, because there are ways of solving those things. If children have a lot of diarrhea, that's another thing too. We just don't know if they're just not well or if there's something wrong. But it's okay to ask your pediatrician or your family doctors for referrals to a gastroenterologist. So I worked with a gastroenterologist who had all kinds of tricks to solve those kinds of things, the pediatric gastroenterologist. So sometimes fiber is good. Have you found good solutions for your own kids for fiber? No? Fruit, little extra fruit, some prunes. In some of the handouts I have here, there's like prunes recommended in there, like pureed prunes, and I'm like, whoa, that's pretty intense. There's other kids that wouldn't work so well. They would have too many bowel movements, but other kids it might work really well. So usually for kids, we recommend about 5 grams of fiber a day up until the age of 5, and then you add on 1 gram of fiber a day after that. So it's not necessarily to use a whole bunch of whole grain breads or that kind of thing, because a slice of whole grain bread is already 2. But if you have white pasta, if you use like brown bread for your child or whole grain bread, and then have some white pasta for them, that's great too. So and again, like piles of vegetables, many of you will see the results. But if we give piles of vegetables, they won't eat their starch carbs either, and they get very full. So any questions about the fibers, different kinds of fibers, soluble fiber, insoluble fiber? So soluble fiber is oatmeal basically, or oats, and that's a great fiber for everyone for lowering cholesterol. And it's a fiber that we use a lot for actually for IBS, whether a person has constipation or diarrhea. So if you you could try that if your child would like oatmeal, even a few tablespoons cooked a day. We like it to be cooked. So if you pour hot water on it, microwave it too, and just get that little goo. So that is what the bowel likes, like the colonic bacteria or the good bacteria in your gut loves oatmeal and oats. So it's awesome, and it can also be enriched with iron too, and folic acid sometimes. Depends. Some of the little packages, if you read them, sometimes they're enriched with extra goodness. Pardon me?
Can you overdo it on oatmeal? Because Olivia only wants oatmeal in the mornings. And it's kind of annoying because it's not an on-the-go food. But can you overdo it on the oatmeal? Because she'll eat it every single morning.
I don't think you can. No, I think it's great. But again, that's something we call a food jag as well, where they will eat the same thing for like a month forever, and then all of a sudden they'll stop, and you'll be like still making this oatmeal for like 2 weeks. Every day for 2 weeks you've made this oatmeal, and she hasn't eaten it for 2 weeks.
It's been like 6 months.
6 months, that sounds good. Well, maybe it's a good thing. So yeah, I mean, a third of a cup of dry oats before you cook it, the dry oats before you cook it, is the same as 2 pieces of bread. So
in terms of fiber or carbs?
Yeah, fiber and carbs. Okay. Yeah. Is she happy all day?
Well, until she gets morning snack, I think she's fine.
She's fine. She needs that. Sometimes we add things to our oatmeal, like a few raisins and hemp hearts and.
She likes banana in her oatmeal, but she eats a lot of oatmeal. Probably
Yeah.
half a cup to a cup some days, like a lot, like cooked.
Cooked. That's all right. That would be, they're never going to eat too much. This is, I will tell you, the only case that I know of where they ate too much. We had a 10-year-old boy come into our gastroenterology clinic with tummy trouble. And his mom, bless her heart, she's very health-oriented. And she poured out a cup of oats. She took a cup of oats, like dry oats, okay? And then she put boiling water on it, and she gave it to him in the morning. And he had a tummy ache every day. So that was the equivalent of 5 pieces of bread, that cup of oats. It's okay though. Grown-ups can eat oats like that, but no, maybe not. So the oats were meant to be cooked, but never meant to have that much for a child. So that was too much and uncooked. You know what I mean? Yeah, that wasn't good. So I was surprised.
Like quick oats or like something that's intended to be made with just boiling water, I think.
Yeah.
That's how I do it. Is that okay?
Well, I'd still put the boiling water on, and then I still put it in the microwave for like a minute.
Okay.
And just get that goo on top. That's the part that your gut, your microbiome likes, that gooey stuff. I can't tell you how many people with IBS we're curing with oats. Never mind all the other fancy diets and everything else. The most amazing thing about the oats is that people take them, and there were people who would take them for 1 or 2 days, like they'd never had oats before in their life. Like there are people like that. It's okay. And you're all laughing. So they take oats for like 3 days, and their stomach starts to hurt and gas and bloating and everything, like something's wrong. And I used to listen to this and I go, oh, well, you must be intolerant to the oats. And then a few people came in and they actually made it through to day 5. And about day 4 or day 5 on the oats, they have this gastrointestinal event. You can just imagine. So I never start them on oats until like Wednesday or something. So they're home on Saturday and Sunday. And they have this event where their gut kind of grumble, 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 and like several bathroom trips, sulfur fumes coming out of the bathroom. But they actually are seeming to change their bowel microbiome. So I take these, there's so much science being done on this right now, but basically I try to just take it down to a level where they're the good bacteria that loves the oats and the soluble fiber in the oats is chasing the bad bacteria out. So sometimes that works, and then there's insoluble fiber like all brand buds and that doesn't necessarily work. Sometimes it makes things worse. So it depends. So if you see a pediatric gastroenterologist and get to see their dietitian, say we have to see the dietitian. They'll sit down and go through everything that your child eats and see if they can do. Good job. Okay. So fruits and vegetables. So Canada's food guide. Everybody hates the food guide, but I have to tell you, it tells you to have 6 to 7 fruit and vegetables a day, right? Have you any idea how small those servings are? Our modern apples are now 3 servings of fruit, basically. These were all designed, like that food guide came out in late 80s, I think. I'm not sure. No, I think there's been 2 since the late 80s. But like a normal apple, that's what they were talking about, or an orange this big. So it's not really something that, you have to worry about. But in terms of choosing fruit and vegetables, we just recommend that you choose the right ones. So anything like bright green or bright red is going to have goodness, except apples. They don't have much goodness, but they seem to help fiber bowel function, so for some people. So you don't always have to have all of those fruits and vegetables all the time. So for things like cauliflower that's white, iceberg lettuce, those kinds of things that are all kind of white, they're not going to have the folic acid, the iron, the vitamin C that the bright green ones are. So if your child is willing to eat like half a green pepper a day, that would be amazing. And then, no, not everyone is. Some are. If they're willing to eat half a green pepper a day, and they're willing to take half a cup of kale a day, they'll get enough vitamin C, but they're not necessarily going to do that. So again, that's why we go back to the orange and the orange juice, the citrus kind of thing, to see if we can get those vitamins boosted up quite quickly. Any questions about, one other thing I wanted to tell you about. This is a thing, it's called nutrigenomics, and it's available throughout Toronto through a dietitian's office. It costs about $400. But if you send I have people coming into my office and purchasing this, but it actually tells you if you have the ability to absorb certain nutrients or utilize certain nutrients properly in your body. So I was thinking, moms and dads should do it, but really you should just do it on your babies, because they'll tell you what your combined gene pool is. So it does have a gene. Apparently we have an energy balance gene that some of us have, that if we go to lose weight, we need to reduce more. Like we have to exercise more and eat less. Some of us do. And one of them that's really interesting is folic acid. So there's been a lot of controversy about it over the years related to heart disease and other things. So folic acid is how our body uses it, and B12, there has some genetic component to it. So that's why, again, going back to spina bifida and folic acid requirements, we wouldn't have known which people were likely to have babies with spina bifida if they just happened to not get enough folic acid, like years and years ago, but there's actually a gene for it. And it's also it can be related to heart disease too. So you can have a look at this. It's quite fun. I just brought it along because not very many people are doing it yet. There's a lot of people doing like 23andMe, but this one is research through the University of Toronto and looking at various studies. And the genetic testing is done at the Princess Margaret Genetics Lab. So that's the only reason why I kind of mention it to people, because it's done in a good organization, we think, right? Very good organization, Louis. Any questions at all? I think I should let you guys go home. Yes?
Talk about multivitamins for like toddlers.
Oh.
The younger one, he's only 20 months, I don't have to do him anything, but the older one, he's 4, I give him like a multivitamin that he takes like this little, like he loves them because they're like treats, but like those omega fish.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm just wondering, like, do they actually need multivitamins? Should they take that supplement, or is that not necessary?
Well, most of our analysis that we do on intakes, if they're drinking that much milk, like they're getting a lot of their Bs, their protein, but milk doesn't have vitamin C or iron. So if you think they're eating enough grains, then, you know, enriched grains, like a little bit of breakfast cereals, like Cheerios has 30% of your iron in it, and Shreddies apparently has 50% of your adult iron in it. So when you look at those cereals, they're crazy. Quaker Oatmeal Squares has lots of oat fiber, and it has, I think, 40% of your iron in it. So if you know that your child's getting a couple of grains that are enriched a day, like a little pasta and a breakfast cereal, you're getting the iron, probably getting the folic acid, and then like a vitamin C source, like a little bit of juice. You should be pretty confident if they're drinking their milk too. So, and it's often hard to get vitamins into them as well, but as long as they taste good. So, but if you know they're having a particularly bad nutrition week, you know, it might be a week where you do give them a supplement, like for the week, or for like 2 or 3 days isn't going to make that much difference, but maybe a whole week when they're eating poorly, or we're at a groceries, or these things happen. Anyway, thank you. Any more questions? Oh, yes, sorry.
About fish. I'm always kind of torn.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I need to feed my family more fish.
Yeah.
But I find it difficult. But canned fish, is that something that a baby should be having, or is the salt content too
We
high?
didn't even get to salt, did we? Oh, wow. Well, you can get salt-free tuna or some canned fish. I think some of the comfort with it is that it's been, you know, it's safe. So that's some of the comfort with the canned fish, and you can get a low salt one. I don't think people just offer it to young children very often, though. I just don't see that. Lots of adults eat tuna sandwiches. But Health Canada suggests that we only have fish 3 times a week because of mercury and toxins. And it doesn't matter if it's farmed fish or a wild fish. They still get the same kinds of toxins. I did meet a family who wanted to have their child be a vegetarian, but they were giving her like this much fish every day. Salmon, actually. And I was like, I gasped, you know, and I said that, you know, that much fish in that tiny little body, an 18-month-old, and she ate it, but I was like, whoa, okay, let's just back up on the fish a little bit here. So I don't know what was happening with the milk either. Maybe she was eating a lot of the fish because that was the choice she was given. Maybe she wasn't getting that much milk. So that's something, you know, parents struggle with that I've seen. If they're a vegetarian, you know, if mom and dad are vegetarian, do they have their child be vegetarian? And it's not really an issue until they're, you know, because they need very little additional protein for ages, so that it shouldn't really be much of an issue till later. But kids do like, I had one daughter who like stole steak off her dad's plate when she was 8 months old and started eating it, so I couldn't say anything about that. We just let her have it and laughed. Anyway, thanks for the great questions, and really enjoyed meeting the whole Kindercircle family.
Because I don't think I actually give her enough carbs, enough starches. So I'm going to go back and rethink that.
See if she takes them. Yeah, it'd be great
Well,
to.
she definitely likes them, but I don't know if I offer her enough.
Oh,
That's
okay.
the problem. So I'll definitely go and reevaluate how I feed her. So thank you so much.
Thank
This is actually
you.
Ellie's art.
Oh, wow. Isn't that lovely? Oh, I'm so delighted. Thank you so much. And thank you for welcoming me to your great Kindercircle family.
Well, thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you. There's some things up here you could have a look at. If you want to take anything, go ahead, and except the plastic food. Small water. Oh, yeah, the extra bowl.